So now let's talk about the Browns and the second major sports event that took place during your administration. And I'll let you just take it from there.
Well, here again, the Browns thrust me. People look at mayors and they think about these fairly powerful people and they can pick and choose who they want to be. But frankly, half of probably my 12 years, I experienced situations that were thrust upon me. I mean, they weren't based on planning. I'm a big planner. I like to have lists. I like to write things down, but they just happen. And I'm sitting in a cabinet meeting and a person walks in with a piece of paper and says on September 11th, two planes just flew into the towers in New York, and the third plane is entering Cleveland airspace and headed for Cleveland. Those things are thrust on you. You don't say, well, tomorrow there's going to be a plane headed for you, and you're going to have to evacuate downtown Cleveland in 15 minutes. So Art Modell comes to see me. He says, after lamenting how much we had done for Gateway, he says that he'd like to have his stadium, have the city stadium, it's our stadium, refurbished so that he could protect the legacy of the Browns. We're all for that. We said over and over again, are you sure you don't want a new stadium? I mean, after all, there are two brand new stadiums, or one new arena, one new stadium, and you're talking about taking a 100-year-old edifice and making it better. He says, nope. I want to fix what we have. I want to, quote, preserve the legacy. Fine. We put the proverbial business group together. It comes up with the proverbial plan. We go through the proverbial salesmanship of what we're trying to do. And so we have a campaign to raise the money. After we've kind of agreed where the money's going to come from, we've had all the negotiations. So it's on the ballot. And Michael, I remember this just like it was yesterday. I was actually not in Cleveland at the time. I was out. For some reason, I was out at a suburban outdoor thing. And it was tied to me being mayor. I don't quite remember why I was there. And so the officer comes over and says, there's a very important call for you. So I go to the car, I take the call. And one of my staff people said that there's a reporter from Baltimore in Cleveland saying that tomorrow, this was a Thursday, tomorrow, Art Modell is going to announce he's moving the Browns to Baltimore. And I can remember this just like yesterday. I said to myself, boy, he's on some bad drugs. And I kind of semi dismissed it. I mean, it was just so far out of the realm of anything that I kind of perceived to be. I believe more about that plane coming to Cleveland than I did that he was going to move the Browns. So I go on with life. I do whatever I do. And I get to work the next morning, and all of a sudden, it's, boom, 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 boom. The drum beat keeps getting louder and louder because this kid or this reporter is making the rounds to everybody. So he's moved now from immediate dismissibility to maybe he has something that we don't know about. And lo and behold, 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, whatever time it was, I, like the rest of Cleveland, was sitting in front of the TV watching Art Modell lie to us and say, I'm moving the Browns to Baltimore. I don't know whether I was more stunned by the move or more stunned by the duplicity. Maybe equally, but I think I was probably more stunned by the duplicity because we were now 4 days away from an election.
Which election?
Election to pass a bond issue for our $70 million to help, with the renovation. And, this is going to sound very strange, and I'm not even sure you would use it, but, for somebody who's seen rough and tumble Cleveland politics, this next part's going to sound fairly naive. So I said, okay, he's made his decision. Art Modell's going to move the Browns. He's wronged us. I know Commissioner Tagliabue will make it right. He's not going to let Art Modell screw Cleveland. After all, we're great NFL Browns supporters, the best in the country. I get Fred Nance from Squire Sanders and Dempsey, who had handled a lot of our really big, sensitive things. I called Fred up, said, Fred, we're going to New York. I got an appointment to see Tagliabue on Sunday night in New York in his office. I'll never forget it. I don't know if you've ever heard the blues song, A Rainy Night in Georgia. But we get to New York, Fred and I, that's all we went. And it's raining cats and dogs. And the vestibule to the building where the NFL is, it looks just like the vestibule to United Way. It's just that small. But that night, there had to be 100 people sitting there with pads and cameras. I mean, it's torrential rains. So Fred and I run the gauntlet. I've never actually told this story publicly. Fred and I run the gauntlet. We get upstairs, and the hallway only has one light on. It's a very narrow hallway, like somebody's house. I think some big guy comes out and he says, everybody there looks like they play football. So he's big. And he says, well, the commissioner will be with you in a little bit. He makes us wait for 45 minutes in the dark, one light. So after about a half an hour, I said, Fred, do you know what's going on? And Fred is a great lawyer. He's a really great lawyer, but he's not a politician. I said, do you know what's going on, Fred? He says, no, what do you think's going on, Mayor? I said, the commissioner's trying to tell us that we're in his house. I said, so we're just going to be patient. 45 minutes later, someone comes out and gets us. We go in his office, and it's also dark. I don't know whether they didn't pay their electric bill or what, but everything's dark. He had one or two lights on. So we're sitting in his office. He comes in. He's very tall, one of the tallest people I've ever seen in my life. And most people, I'd only seen him on television. But I knew he was going to take care of this problem because we had been wronged and we didn't deserve it. So we sit down. We had almost no chit chat. I then methodically walked him through everything. How Modell came to us, how he said this is what he wanted, how we got a business community, a business group together to organize how he raised the money, how the city negotiated the various pieces of the bond issue, how in 48 hours we're going to have an election for a team that's on its way to Baltimore. And that I'm here because we've been wronged and we want you to fix this. As crazy as what I'm going to tell you sounds, this is exactly what happens. He turns to me and he basically says, how much is it going to take for you all to go away? And to show you how committed I am to doing things right, I instantly thought I had screwed up. I thought, well, maybe I didn't get the explanation right. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe something I missed. So I explained it to him again from the beginning, just like it was our first meeting. And he reiterated what he said. He was a little bit more diplomatic this time around, but he basically was trying to buy the town off. What is it going to take? You want the land or whatever. What I said to him next was not planned, but I can guarantee you that if you could go out on Euclid right now, you could pick a dozen Clevelanders at random and make them mayor. And in that situation, they would have said just about the same thing. Maybe not the way I did it, but at the end of the day, the intent would be the same. Now, Fred's completely silent. He doesn't know what to say. I turned to him. I said, Mr. Commissioner, let me tell you what's getting ready to happen. I said, it's getting ready to be a fight. And I can't tell you who's going to win. I said, but I can promise you one thing. There's going to be a lot of blood on the floor when this is over. Some of it's going to be mine. A lot of it's going to be yours. I said, you have a good evening. And we left New York and we came back to Cleveland and announced that we were going to take the NFL on. And that's where the team name and colors. Michael, not everybody, but most people think that was a fight about sports. And on the face of it, it was. And while this may sound a little sophomoric for a 61-year-old ex-mayor to say this, it was really about this community's dignity. I grew up in Glenville. I watched these people, I can't call them what I would call them if we weren't on air, make us the butt of their jokes. We were cannon fodder for their 11:30 jokes. I flew on planes and sat behind people who were leaving Cleveland and didn't know us, didn't know our neighborhoods, didn't know our history, and they talked about us. And I, like most Clevelanders, took real umbrage with that. And I made a point of, while I was mayor, never entertaining a joke about Cleveland. Won't talk to you about it. Don't talk to me that way. Not about the town I grew up in and I serve. So for me, and I'm not even telling you it was right, I felt that we had to fight the NFL because of our dignity. It wasn't football. It was our community had been wronged for no reason. You said this is what you wanted. We're in a position to deliver it, which we, by the way, delivered it with no team. And now you screw us. Well, we're going to screw you right back. But we're going to win. So we basically launched a campaign on two fronts. This is why it always makes sense to have a real smart lawyer. And Fred's a real smart lawyer. He read the lease for the Browns. Thank God for Ralph Perk. Ralph Perk's lawyer, Ralph Perk's law director drafted this lease. And there were two words in the lease that tripped up Art Modell and Tagliabue. Specific performance. That basically says you can't buy us out. There's no amount of money that you can give us to make up for you breaking the lease. Specific performance basically said you got to stay there. It also said that if we did nothing else, it may take a year or two, but if we did nothing else, we were going to beat them. The problem was possession is 10% of the law, so the Browns were already in Baltimore. So we'd be fighting over something we lost, and even if we won, the next step would have been to negotiate a settlement that didn't include the Browns coming back. So being able to win legally 2 or 3 years from now wasn't going to cut it. We had to bring to bear, we had to go fight them in the courts and then bring to bear the kind of public tsunami, the likes of which they have never seen and never want to see again, to bear on the NFL. And that's what we did. And Clevelanders all banded together. We fought them publicly and we fought them privately. And we fought them in all kinds of ways, and we were in places they never expected us to be. And we even turned our strategy on the individual teams and disrupted their businesses. So at the end of the day, Paul Tagliabue got a call from the leader of the owners and said, make a deal with Cleveland. Cost them $60 million, plus a bunch of other doodads. But I think that was one of Cleveland's finest hours. Not because we got the Browns. No, don't get me wrong. I look at the Browns every Sunday. I'm not a sports person, but I love the Browns and the Buckeyes. But it was our finest hour because Clevelanders stood up and said, we're not going to take this. Win, lose, or draw, we're going to draw a line. We're going to make this fight. Don't know if we're going to win, but we're going to give everything we've got. And that's, to me, the importance of the Browns. It also reacquainted me with my belief that anytime we are together as a community, anytime we, by and large, make a decision about something we want to achieve, we're going to do that. If we can agree on certain things we want to do or we want to be, and if we put our, as they say, our backs into it, we, by and large, are going to be successful. And if you look at our history, every time we've banded together over something, even back in the histories that you know more about than I do, we've been successful. And so one of the key elements, I think, of this community, whether it's education or the pursuit of a progressive civic politic, is trying to find ways and trying to find things that we agree about. It's so easy to find things we disagree about. That's the easy part. But to find things that we agree about, I think, is a major part of what can help us be an even greater community. And if I have a moment, I'm going to just tell you the greatest lesson I learned on the campaign trail. You have this kid who grows up in Glidville, 99% black. He starts representing suburbs when he becomes a state senator. He grows up in a community for 38 years. He actually only went to the west side of Cleveland twice in his life before he runs for mayor. Twice. And maybe once. Has this 11-month campaign. And when he finally stopped campaigning at 5 o'clock on the first Tuesday in November, and it's raining cats and dogs, and he's soaking wet, he leaves the campaign trail with this lesson. There's an old saying that one of everything God ever made lives in Cleveland, because we have all these different ethnic groups. I firmly believe that you could take a representative, I think it was 37 last time I checked, my guess is it's more. You could take a representative from these 37 ethnic groups, you could put them in 37 rooms. Lithuanian, Hispanic, Russian, African American, Irish, the whole alphabet. You could give them a piece of paper and a pencil with 3 questions. And the questions are, one question, tell us the 3 most important things to you. The vast majority of what these people from so many different ethnic groups are going to say will be, 1, I want to have economic security. I want to be able to go to work tomorrow. I want to know that fool owner of the business is not going to move it to Mexico or someplace where they're paying the workers 12 cents an hour. Number 2, while I'm away working at the job because I have an astute owner who didn't move my job, I want my wife and my children to be safe. I don't want my child to have to step over needles with drugs in them on the way to school. I don't want my wife to have to worry about some guy walking up behind her to take her purse. And if heaven forbid there's a problem, I'd really like the police to get there quickly. Number 3, they're going to say, I want generational security for my children. I want them to get a good education. I'd like them to be able to go to college or to get a skill. And I like for Cleveland to be the kind of town that they would want to live in, so that on Sundays I can go over their house and have dinner. Generational security. Financial security, physical security, and generational security binds all of those different people. So at the end of the day, there's so much more that we agree on than we disagree on. And if we can have a community that focuses on those 3 things, all those people are going to buy into that, because at their very core are those dreams and aspirations.
Thank you, Mayor White.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.